Oh, hello. Welcome to the Curious Emporium. Have a look at what we have in store for you.
All right, let's talk about one of the strangest and most terrifying mysteries to ever come out of Victorian England. We're diving into the legend of spring-heeled Jack. For the better part of a century, this thing was a phantom, a bogeyman, and an absolute media sensation. And his story, well, it tells us just as much about the fears of the era as it does about the monster himself.
So, I want you to picture it. It's the 1800s. London is shrouded in this constant twilight of coal smoke and fog. Gas lamps are casting these long, creepy, dancing shadows. And for a lot of people, especially a woman walking home alone, the city's maze-like alleys were filled with this creeping dread. It was a weird time, an age of science and industry clashing with spiritualism and old superstitions.
And right in the middle of this eerie setting, whispers started to spread. Whispers of a predator that just defied all logic. A figure that seemed to materialize out of the smog itself. A creature that could leap over walls, clear entire houses. A name that would soon become legendary. Spring-heeled Jack. Now, this wasn't just some campfire story. This terror exploded into the historical record with a series of very specific, very violent, and deeply strange encounters that just got more and more intense. The first real wave of attacks hit fast and hard in late 1837 and early 1838. What started as a local scare in South London, places like Clapham, it quickly snowballed into a full-blown citywide panic. One day he's grabbing a servant girl, the next he's literally leaping in front of a carriage and causing a major crash. The escalation was insane. And with that first victim, Mary Stevens, the details are absolutely crucial. It wasn't just that she was assaulted, it's how he did it. He didn't just grab her, he used what she said were sharp claws to rip at her clothes. Right away, this made it clear to everyone. This was not your average street criminal. This was something else.
It's a detail like that that just burrows into the public's imagination, that chilling description, cold and clammy as those of a corpse. It's so visceral. It suggests something not quite human, a terrifying little detail that would come to define the legend.
Okay, now let's get to one of the most famous cases. This involved a teenager named Jane Alsop. And in this instance, the attacker used pure deception. He rings her doorbell, says he's a police officer, and shouts, "For God's sake, bring me a light, for we have caught spring-heeled Jack." The terrible twist. He was Jack. So Jane brings him a candle. He throws off his cloak, and what she sees becomes the definitive image of this monster. Eyes that glowed like red balls of fire. He was wearing a strange helmet and a tight-fitting white suit that looked like an oilskin. And then he attacks her, tearing at her neck and clothes with those same metallic claws. Unbelievably, just 9 days after that, another woman, Lucy Scales, is walking with her sister. A tall, cloaked figure steps out of an alley and, without saying a single word, spits a jet of blue flame right in her face. She collapsed into violent fits that lasted for hours. So let's do a quick recap. Our phantom has claws. He can leap over buildings, he has eyes of fire, and now he can breathe flames. His supernatural reputation was pretty much set in stone. With all these terrifying, seemingly supernatural attacks happening, this became more than just a police problem. It quickly snowballed into a genuine social panic that had all of London in its grip. And this is when the story got an official stamp of credibility. The Lord Mayor of London himself, Sir John Cowan, actually stood up and addressed the matter publicly. He read from a letter that had been sent by a citizen, and just like that, the Spring Jack phenomenon became front-page news. It gave a kind of authority to what some people had just been brushing off as rumors. And that letter, it introduced the very first major theory to the public, that this wasn't some demon, but a twisted, high-stakes prank. The author claimed it was all a wager between some rich, bored aristocrats to see who could terrorize the most villages dressed as a ghost, a bear, or a devil. The idea that some mad marquis was behind it all really took hold. Once it became official, the newspapers just went nuts. They coined the name Spring-heeled Jack, and it became a household term overnight. Hysteria spread like wildfire. There were even unconfirmed reports that people had literally died of fright. Vigilante groups started forming their own patrols to hunt him down, and parents started telling their kids, "Behave, or Spring-heeled Jack will get you." A true urban legend had been born. So with the entire city in a full-blown panic, there was one question on everybody's mind. Who, or what, was Spring-Heeled Jack? The search for answers led to some really fascinating theories, and each one tells you a little something about the anxieties of the Victorian age. Basically, it all boiled down to three main theories. First, you have the prankster theory, pointing fingers at guys like the Mad Marquis of Waterford, who is famous for his violent jokes. Then there was the supernatural explanation. I mean, with the glowing eyes and fire breathing, you can see why people thought he was a demon. And finally, you have the idea of mass hysteria. This third theory is really interesting. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, Jack wasn't a single person at all. Maybe he was a product of collective anxiety. In an era with so much rapid change, poverty, and social stress, the fear of a monster in the streets might have just given all those anxieties a physical form to latch onto. But here's the thing. Jack's story didn't just end with the London Panic of 1838. Not even close. In fact, his legend was really just getting started. It kept evolving, spreading across the country for decades, and, believe it or not, transforming from a figure of pure terror into something else entirely. For over 60 years, this phantom just kept popping up. He was seen leaping onto rooftops in the Midlands. In the 1870s, soldiers at a military base reported a creature slapping a sentry across the face before leaping away, totally unharmed by their gunfire. The legend had taken on a life of its own, far beyond that initial London panic. And here's maybe the wildest twist in his entire story, the way his image changed in fiction. In these cheap, sensational comics of the time called penny dreadfuls, Spring-Heeled Jack was completely reimagined. He went from being this devil-like villain who attacked women to a costumed hero, a nobleman who had been cheated out of his inheritance and now fought for justice. He was basically a prototype for the superheroes we know today. How weird is that? But the legend also took a much, much darker turn. In 1888, while London was paralyzed by the fear of Jack the Ripper, a letter showed up signed Spring-Heeled Jack, the Whitechapel murderer. Now, the connection was dismissed, but the name Jack became forever tied to the Ripper's horrific crimes, intertwining these two phantom figures in London's dark history forever. And you'd think the story would finally end in 1904, right? Nope. The legend went quiet, sure, but reports never fully vanished. And as recently as 2012, a family in Surrey reported something absolutely chilling. They saw a dark, human-like figure take a sudden, impossibly high leap over a roadside bank and just disappear into the night. So what was he in the end? A nobleman's cruel joke that just got way out of hand? A shared nightmare born from a city's deepest anxieties? Or was it something genuinely unexplainable that stalked the night? Despite all the theories, no one was ever caught. The case file is still wide open, leaving us all to wonder what really was lurking in the foggy shadows of Victorian England.